I am absolutely thrilled to be here in Gloucestershire on the edge of the Cotswolds at Berkeley Castle. This castle has been lived in by the same family for nearly 900 years. I mean, just looking at it right now, I can see the arrow slits, I can see the keep. I mean, this is a proper castle. It's a fortress. It's incredible. But I also know that a king was imprisoned here and murdered as well. So I'm gonna go meet the family right now. Ooh, and they're gonna tell me everything. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Hello and welcome to the drawing room here at Mapperton. Thank you once again for joining me for another fascinating historic house visit. This time I'm at Berkeley Castle in Gloucestershire, and Berkeley Castle has been described as an enchanted castle and is everything you imagine a medieval castle to be. It is spectacular. Wow, and incredible. It's like walking back in time. It's a real fortress. I mean, this has this feeling of sort of defending itself from invaders and clearly imprisoning a king. As well as being at the center of so much history, it's been home to the Berkeley family for nearly 900 years. Charles Berkeley is now at the helm and continuing the legacy of generations of Berkeleys before him. Hello.
Hi, Judy.
Oh my goodness, so nice to see you, and
good to see you.
gosh, to be here. You know, the pictures don't do it justice.
It's magical as you come in and approach through this door into the Great Hall.
Oh my goodness. The banqueting hall.
It is.
For me, it's astounding, first of all, just to know that your family has been here for nearly 900 years.
I believe it's the oldest inhabited castle in Great Britain, lived in by the same family that built it originally. We're still here in some form, and it's wonderful. It's got a lot of history all around it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible. And as you said, it's, you know, that is rare. You go to these homes and, you know, some of them have been there for 300, 400, 500 years, yes, but 900 years, and you are obviously the only family who can make that claim.
And I think I'm the 27th generation being here, from 1150, basically.
1150. So, you know, it's nearly, you know, we can say 1,000 years of history.
Yes.
Nearly. We're coming up to that. So this is the banqueting hall. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. And what has stayed the same and what has sort of changed or evolved?
Well, these were the original Norman arches. So those were the original arches here when the castle, this room was being constructed.
Right.
And the roof has adapted.
Yes.
This was rebuilt in the 15th century. These amazing ship's timbers, this vaulted roof. You imagine the work that goes into constructing that.
Yes. Remind us, the banqueting hall was again, like a great hall. Everything sort of happened here, is that right?
Everything happened here, from entertaining royalty, families would have had dinners here, They would have had banquets to celebrate various events. They would have had galleries like this, and musicians would have played and performed. And it's been used right up to the present day. There are weddings and parties here still in the hall.
That's what's so fantastic, and as it should do, and as it should be used. Now, you mentioned here, this is the Minstrel Gallery here, is that right?
This is the Minstrels Gallery.
And is that the original Minstrels Gallery?
This is one that came from a house in Wales called Ceffin Mabli, and there would have been a gallery here, but it was stripped away. This one was brought in, and they added Berkeley coats of arms on it, repainted it. And there's a famous story of the last royal jester in the country told his last joke from up there. He was pushed, apparently, from that balcony and died in 1720s, but he was the last royal jester in the country.
Oh
died,
my goodness.
Supposedly from this balcony.
Oh dear.
For telling bad jokes.
He was pushed, pushed to his death.
Pushed, and he was the Earl of Suffolk's own jester.
Right.
And died in this room. But he was a celebrated character of his time.
And it's quite common, I mean, I know this just at Mapperton as well, some of our fireplaces, the mantles were brought from other stately homes, historic homes. You would find them and then you would bring them into your own home as well to sort of keep with the look and feel and be sympathetic to what you're doing. Is that what's happened here? There was once a minstrel's gallery, it had been removed, and then it was brought back in.
Absolutely, brought back in, redecorated, in sympathy with how the building would have been. And actually, talking about fireplace, this one was brought from another property, an old Elizabethan property on the estate, and by the 8th Earl and established here.
So tell me a little bit about the 8th Earl then, because you've mentioned him here, and he was somebody who decided to, right, I'm going to be sympathetic, I'm going to bring it back to its original sort of look and feel.
He did. He decided that during the Victorian times, a lot of the rooms had changed in their style. They'd been wood panelled, and he stripped that away. He wanted to replace some of the earlier windows with very symbolic stained glass windows showing lots of the family and royal links to the castle. So he had these shields put on in the 1930s, I believe.
Right.
He put in new doors, he put electrics in the castle, he brought in a lot of stonework and doors from other places, travelled through France and Italy, and salvaged a lot of things to turn the castle back into what he felt it would have been originally.
Yes.
A Norman castle, which is what it was.
Exactly.
But it had been changed slightly over the years.
Where is your coat of arms, just so I get it right?
Julie, here, that shield there, the chevron, the upside down V with those crosses, that is the shield, the Berkeley shield.
Okay.
And that goes back to 1300. So, for example, the Berkeley there, William, the 12th Baron of Berkeley, he actually left the castle to Henry VII and his heirs. He wanted to become a marquis, and he had the castle taken away from him for his actions, that the king didn't approve of some of the things he'd done, and it became a royal castle for 150 years. But that is the family main shield. Right. And you can see it again up there with the bishop's mitre atop.
Yes.
And then some royal coats of arms of some of the royals who came, and other family coats of arms here.
Goodness, well, I'm just having a look.
So Henry VIII there, and his dates, Henry VII.
Yes, up above we've got King Edward VI.
That's it.
So how many monarchs would you say have sort of visited or stayed or lived?
We reckon about 10 have actually been and maybe come for a very short time, including Henry VIII, who came for a week.
Right, he came for a week. That's quite a long time.
It is a long time. And Edward and Richard II, who wrote about, it was written about, he came and visited in Shakespeare, and he mentions Berkeley. So, yes, there were some who came briefly, and there were some who sadly didn't survive. Edward II was actually, yes.
Right.
I'll tell, there's more of a story about him. So yes, we reckon about 10 visited. 10? 10.
I mean, absolutely. And who's the last one to visit?
And King Charles has visited here. And
brilliant.
Prince Harry came and did some work experience here for a couple of weeks on the
Right.
estate.
Fantastic.
So recent visitors.
You've had recent royalty.
Recent royalty.
That is brilliant. This banqueting hall, we know how it was used, of course, way back when, but do you still use this hall as a family?
We do. We have weddings, parties in here, and we've used it over the last 5 years for many family parties, and it comes alive. It's a fantastic room. It's got the history around it. Why not, as a family, use these rooms when you can?
Yeah, well, and they should be used. And
Yes.
That's what's so wonderful, and I think that's what also is fantastic is that these historic houses in Berkeley Castle, you know, in particular, what you've just shared with me is that they're lived in by the families. These aren't just, you know, museums filled with history. It's the family making use of the rooms and creating their own history.
It really is, and I think that's so important, and you get a sense of pride when the rooms are being used for a lovely occasion and they're decorated, and
Yeah.
you know, the sound of people enjoying themselves.
Yes,
I think
exactly,
it's great.
exactly. Wow, so this is one spectacular room, and there are a lot of rooms here, aren't there?
There are. Let's go and have a look at another room.
Okay, great. It is a huge privilege to film at so many historic houses across the UK, just like this one in Inverell Castle. And many of these homes are still owned by the families who have lived in them for centuries. The owners and custodians of these magnificent buildings do all they can to ensure these homes survive and thrive for current and future generations. And in this series, you can see how their passion and dedication shine through, despite the many challenges of preserving these gems of Britain's heritage. There is, however, a wonderful nonprofit organization to which hundreds of these properties belong, including Mapperton. It's called Historic Houses. And you too now have the opportunity to support this vital work preserving the living history of Britain's heritage. As a member of Historic Houses, you will be able to explore hundreds of the most beautiful historic houses, castles, and gardens across the UK, in person and online as well. You will receive invitations to exclusive, intimate, online talks from the house owners themselves, as well as seminars on all sorts of exciting art, architecture, and history subjects. There is a stunning quarterly magazine sent straight to your door, and it covers lots of heritage topics, but also fun stuff too, including stories from house owners. And the Historic Houses website is packed with extra information on these houses, as well as video tours and previous seminars from experts and historians. There are also extraordinary opportunities for travel and tours, with many providing exclusive behind-the-scenes access to these glorious castles, manors, and stately homes, perfect for planning your next UK vacation. And it's not just those who live in Britain who can enjoy Historic Houses membership. It's open to everyone, wherever you live in the world. And for Historic Houses international members, there are many, many exciting benefits. Plus, if you're visiting Britain, you can use your Historic Houses membership card to visit many of the places that appear in this series for free, alongside hundreds of other wonderful houses. Furthermore, I've set up a very special code which gives you a discount on your Historic Houses yearly membership. So please see the details in the description below. Don't miss out on the chance to step into this amazing world and support the exciting future of Britain's extraordinary privately owned historic houses. Where are we heading into now?
Well, Julie, we're going into the long drawing room, the sort of Regency period, lovely rooms.
Lovely, and I can see the public gets to, I recognize ropes like this. We have them at Mapperton as well.
They
so this
do.
is one of the rooms that the public gets to
Absolutely, they
see.
get to view this room, and it's wonderful. There's a lot of history here.
Well, yeah, everywhere. I mean, this is a royal castle, so
Yes,
there's lots
yes.
of history.
Yes.
Of course. Now, that has caught my eye because it almost looks like it's out of place for a long drawing room. I mean, not that I know that much about long drawing rooms, but
Yes, it's very, you wouldn't normally expect that, would you? Walk in here, but it's 15th century, so it goes back to Henry VII's time with his coat of arms.
Oh.
And in the middle there
Yes.
And
But what is it?
it is a pew that would have been used in church, in a chapel. A lot of these houses had the family pew. When they had visiting dignitaries, they would have sat up there. And this was in one of the chapels in the castle, a room not far from here. And the 8th Earl took it down in the 1920s because he was agnostic, didn't want to have a chapel in the house, and had it rebuilt in here, as you do.
As you do in a long drawing room. But he somehow made it work.
He did, and yes, as you wouldn't think it would work in a period room like this, but he had a very good eye, and it does sort of work, and you get used to the lovely woodwork and
Yes.
how it is, and it's and in fact it's got the nice coat of arms on.
Yes, well, that is
Yeah.
absolutely spectacular. And what else do we have dotted around?
We've got lovely paintings. This painting here is of the 5th Earl of Berkeley, quite a character in his time, painted by an artist called Bertoni. That's him in I think in ancient Rome on his European travels. And this is his wife, Mary Cole, a local lady who eventually he married, and they had 12 children,
Oh my
I
goodness.
believe, together. And there was a famous story because after he had died in 1812, she had to go to the House of Lords and fight this court case for her children.
For all
because,
12?
well, the elder son, who was meant to inherit the title, it was turned down against him because he'd signed, they didn't actually get married. The church registry, he'd falsified the documents to say they got married in 1786. He was in league with the local vicar. And
Right.
actually, their real marriage took place 10 years later. So the older 5 children were born outside of the marriage. And she fought for this case, went to the House of Lords for the privileges case. We've got documents about it. And lost the case.
No.
So it caused some ill feeling. The 6th
Yes.
son, in the end, got the castle, but loved his brother and didn't take the title on. And the brother was actually, he let him, he got another title, the older one, who should have had the title. But it did cause some animosity. She never knew this. She thought they got married in Berkeley Church, and it was all done legally.
Right, yes.
But actually, it wasn't a proper ceremony.
Wasn't.
He rushed it through, knowing it wasn't. And they only got married, as I said, years later. But she fought 3 occasions. She went to the House of Lords to fight this.
What a beautiful room, and just filled with incredible stories from, different periods. And
Absolutely, yeah.
These
300
castles,
years of history with the pew and the paintings up to the modern day.
up to the modern day. Absolutely brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, should we walk through into here?
Yes. Look at those carvings up there. Oh my. Okay, the thing that I'm just going to tell you right now, Charles, not knowing anything about this room,
Yes.
I know nothing about this room, are the beams. But should I be in awe of the beams?
You should.
Okay.
Well noticed, Julie. Because these are all solid ships, again, oak timbers, and they say that they used to get the cannons on top of the roof. You had to have these strong, there's quite a naval connection with the family, but these are all from ships. You can see some different sizes.
Yes.
You see it very much in this room, though, the size of the beams.
That's incredible. I mean,
And
it's
the room's slightly lower as well.
Yes, it's the first thing that caught my eye. I mean, it's a beautiful room. There's incredible tapestries surrounding me, but
Yes.
funny enough, that's the first thing that caught my eye.
Solid, good,
Yeah.
big oak beams. This was all wood panelling around here. It was stripped away by the 8th Earl, so to reveal some of the stonework, which has
Yes.
been redone.
And then the tapestries to keep it warm.
Yeah.
So the tapestries are actually being used in a way
Absolutely, I think
they
really
were-
well.
yeah,
There's
really,
a
really
series
well.
of lovely tapestries that warm,
Lovely.
make the room cozy.
that tapestries.
Fireplace
It's
that came from somewhere elsewhere
Right.
again,
I know
with
that
these lovely
story.
carvings
yeah, beautiful
and this
carvings
lovely
everywhere.
iron grate at the back.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful
And
carvings.
there's a king right there. So is that,
That
Charles
is-
the first or the second?
I think that's the second.
The second, yes.
And that's the Duke of Northumberland.
Okay.
Again, rather lovely, 2 lovely paintings. No
Yes.
connection to the family, but it was acquired.
That's
by
right.
the
It's a
family.
connection to our family. So that's
Charles
why
II,
that's
yes.
why I always thought Charles II in any room or anywhere
Right.
I go.
You'd love to look for.
It's
yeah.
our claim to fame. It's our really only royal link. I mean, proper royal link is, of course, bringing Charles II back for the restoration.
Fantastic. That's,
You know,
that's a great story.
I'm going to wave that flag for a long time.
That's
the reason we have the monarchy today is because of the Montagus.
He's one of my favorite kings too. Just,
Well, that is brilliant. Oh, I love it that you have family photos in the rooms that the public obviously go through and see the history, but then they're seeing the living history here.
absolutely. This is the current family. This is
Oh.
our family. My father, my mother, my brother and his wife, my wife. And, you know, the family are seen here at the castle. We have family events. The family are often seen rushing around through these courtyards into the rooms. They come to see Granny here at the castle. My daughter and friends, they disappear up into some of the rooms. And
Incredible. But
Lovely.
you grew up here then? Yes.
We grew up.
in the castle.
we spent the winter months here
Right.
at Berkeley because there was a lot more going on in the winter here. And my brother and I, 11 months between us, there were two of us, two boys in the castle. We had our rooms up in the oldest part of the castle, and we would run around these rooms, hiding in the pew, hiding up on the king's balcony. The guided tours were on, we'd suddenly jump out. We'd be up on the roof. As soldiers, my brother, we both had a love of all things military, and yeah, we'd explore every little part. My father would often come and look for us. My mother had a bell she would ring to get us in for lunch. She'd ring it in the courtyard, and all the guides and visitors would be looking, and there'd be two boys up on the roof. So we loved being here, and we had rooms, as I said, in the keep, away from my parents, but it was exciting. It was a privilege, as my father
Yes.
said.
Yes, yes.
The privilege of being in these rooms, of these houses. And yeah, I loved and I grew to love history from a young age and visiting other places, but being able to
Yeah.
explore these rooms was
Right.
magical.
Of
We were very
course.
lucky. And
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah.
it grows on you. This is your surroundings, and it was magical. And I think my brother would say the same.
Berkeley Castle played a major role in a gruesome and chilling event of British medieval history. Charles led me to the keep, the oldest surviving part of the castle, to tell me more.
Everywhere you go, Charles, I've already decided I do feel I'm in just a proper castle. It's really maintained and retained all of its features.
It certainly has, and you've got these incredible trip steps, the original steps coming up into the oldest part of the castle, the keep.
Well, what are trip steps?
They're made so they're slightly uneven, on different
Yeah.
angles even, very solid stones, and the enemy coming up here would trip them up. It would
Well, I was
literally-
wondering why I was having a difficult time actually.
I
getting
noticed
up
just
the
now.
steps. I was like, well, that's very clever.
It is. It's a great invention and a piece of feat of building, and it's coming up to this solid, wonderful old keep, the original tower of the castle where the family and others would have lived. It was a safe place,
Right.
And the enemy would often come up here, and you'd have your arrow men and guards up on top, or you
Yes.
pour your boiling oil down. There's a little area just behind the door there,
Yes.
and get the enemy as they were rushing up these steps.
As they were rushing up, but they could be tripping.
Or they could be tripping as well because of the uneven steps.
Yes, brilliant. That's amazing.
Okay, we're going to go into the cell now, the prison cell, where a
And-
king was kept.
Oh my goodness, so this is it.
This is the original cell, which back in 1327, Edward II was imprisoned and killed.
And killed. Oh my goodness. This is where a king was locked up. basically.
It was, Julia. King Edward II was imprisoned in here, locked up. 6 months he was kept as a prisoner, looked after well, but nonetheless he was King of England, and there were guards outside.
Right.
And the Berkeleys apparently left the castle, went somewhere else, had no part to play in it.
What had he done?
He hadn't really done anything. He was considered at the time quite a weak king. He'd lost battles against the Scots. He had his favourites. The barons became very powerful. Supposedly his wife, who was the daughter of the King of France, was having an affair with one of the barons, Roger Mortimer. Edward was, and they plotted, there were various things. He had his male favourites, supposedly, and all these plots came together, and
Right.
he was imprisoned in 2 other castles before eventually coming here and eventually being killed. Or
Here?
Dying in this very room.
No.
Which is amazing to
No.
know that a
Okay.
king was killed.
When you say that he died here, did he die because he wasn't fed, or did somebody come and murder him?
Supposedly 2 jailers were ordered by the barons at the time to come, and he'd already escaped twice. There'd been 2 escape attempts.
Right.
They needed money for new locks. We have accounts of that to keep him as a prisoner. And they realised, actually, we've got to do something about him. If he escapes again, we may not keep him here. It was a punishment to him, and he was supposedly killed. There's a rather nasty story of red hot irons being inserted into his bowels.
No.
And being killed, or was he suffocated in his sleep?
Right.
Rather nasty story, grim story, but he certainly died in September 1327 here.
Here. Was Edward II the only person, I mean, I know he was the only king to be imprisoned here, but was he the only person to be imprisoned here? No. Was this used as sort of...
I believe there would have been other prisoners who would have been put in here before Edward II, and again after, probably another 100 years after. This would have been used as a cell.
As a
and
cell.
People would have been kept in here before. Some of them would have been thrown into there is a dungeon here in the castle, a pit, with rotting animal carcasses on top. In fact, Edward, they tried to kill him in that way. The rotting animal carcasses in the dungeon, they thought the fumes from that would eventually kill him. But he survived. He was made of strong stuff, and the fumes, you can imagine, would come through into this room from the dungeon. But he survived all that, and they had to find another way.
And they
thought eventually he'll just die from the horrible fumes. But many prisoners would have been thrown in the dungeons, and that would have been it.
That would have been...
But this was a cell.
Yes.
Back in the time.
Yes,
a holding cell.
You did say that your ancestors had nothing to do with his imprisonment. But what happened to them when Edward II was here imprisoned? Where did your ancestors go?
Well, we think Thomas wanted no part to play in it. I don't think he had any say in the fact that Berkeley was that Edward II was going to come here. He would have known, though. But he went to one of the other manor houses in Bristol, and he was pardoned. He was at first questioned and then pardoned that he had no part to play in it. They left it to a group. There were 3 or 4 jailers and people living here guarding the king at the time, and they went to their other house, then came back later.
And then came back.
But he wasn't executed or
luckily
he kept his head.
Yeah, luckily.
They were good at keeping their heads, the Berkeleys.
Yes, for 900 years.
For 900 years. Keeping on the right side of the king or queen, which was important.
Exactly, at the time.
I don't know if it's a good thing that we connected to that, but it's a story, and it's history, isn't it?
It is history, and it's just you're standing in this room right now knowing that, Edward II was definitely pacing back and forth, trying to figure out how he was going to escape. And, that's pretty
I can't
extraordinary.
imagine being in a cell, in a car, and knowing he'd been kept prisoner.
Right.
You can't imagine how it would have been. The castle is still here, and there's a family here. That's what makes it. It's quite special in that way. We've got rooms like this, which
which tell a story.
Tell a story.
Yeah.
Berkeley Castle is breathtaking. As soon as you arrive, you get a very real sense of it having been a fortress. But it's also a family home, and it's been lived in by the same family for nearly 900 years. And you know me, I'm fascinated by historical documents and what's still to be discovered in the archives. So Charles kindly invited me to visit the muniment room in the private area of the castle.
Here we are in the muniment room, Julie.
So this is it. This is where all of Berkeley archives are held.
Absolutely going right back to 1100, basically, up to a lot of medieval ones especially.
I mean, that must be unheard of. Is that right? Having this large of a collection that dates back.
I think there are many family collections that go right back continuously that far.
No, ours certainly don't.
And if I can introduce you to Karen, our archivist.
Hi.
Hi.
So
Lovely
nice to meet you. This is a treat. First of all, love muniment rooms. I'm redecorating one at Mapperton, and it's just become this real passion project of mine, and finding these letters. But as Charles just told me, you know, our letters kind of go back a few hundred years. Yours is nearly 1,000.
Yes. And I've got the earliest ones out to show you.
Oh my goodness.
Today.
I can't believe it. So you have documents, clearly, that have survived almost 1,000 years.
That's it.
That's
Yes.
Almost,
incredible.
Yeah.
And how many would you say around that are almost near, you know, medieval?
Ooh. What would you reckon, Karen?
I think there's about 3,000, 3,500 up to 1491, which we have a published catalogue of. And the reason we stopped there was that was the date where the estate passed to the Crown for several decades.
Yes.
So these, the top three are the documents by which the estate originally came into the family in the 1150s. So they're not dated, but we can work out roughly when they're dated by the names of the witnesses at the bottom. So who was around at this particular time. So this one is the very first one, and we think it's about 1150. And you've got H is Henry, Duke of Normandy, Count of Anjou, and that is Henry II, but he's not Henry II yet.
Okay.
And he is granting to Robert Fitzharding from Bristol various things, including some land in the manor of Berkeley. You can just see Berkeley there.
Okay, yeah, I can.
And one of the things that, one of the conditions that is laid down is that he is to build a castle, and you can just see Castellum there.
Yes.
So this document dates back to before this building. They're older than the building itself.
That's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's also amazing because obviously this is in Latin.
Yes. Yes.
But you can clearly see Berkeley right there, clearly, and then of course Castelli right there. So it's incredible that Berkeley, even the name, because you know how language has just evolved, has pretty much stayed the same and almost the exact spelling.
Almost the exact, so it's Berkeley with an AI on the end, but so that's
this is very important because in one sense this is a document saying that the soon-to-be Henry II is in one sense giving this land to the family.
Yes.
Okay.
And then this one is a marriage contract between Robert Fitzharding's son Maurice and the daughter of the guy who had Berkeley before, and his name is Roger de Berkeley, and his daughter's name is Alice.
Right.
It's not mentioned in the document. It just says the daughter of.
Yeah.
But also the other way as well. Roger's son Roger is marrying Robert Fitzharding's daughter Helen.
Oh, right.
So it's a two-way family marriage contract, presumably to make sure it's stuck.
So again, that's very important because that's sort of this agreement of marriage. If you like. Yes,
absolutely. And there will have been 2 copies of it. On the
I can see Berkeley in there. I already see Roger de Berkeley
well done,
there.
Roger de Berkeley, there he is. And across the bottom here, you might be able to see there's the top half of some writing. And it will originally have been one big sheet of parchment, and written across the middle in big letters will say Chirographum, which they would put across the middle and then cut, and then you both get a copy.
Oh.
And then if it fits back together, if you've got any query about the transaction,
Right.
if it fits back together and the writing fits, then
You know it's
then
the
you know
original.
it's genuine.
Right.
And this carries on right up until the sort of 18th century.
It's just fantastic.
They're so clear. They're much clearer than later documents to read.
And I've also noticed, of course I'm not going to touch, but you've got these sort of, well, the seal there, is that
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's still been retained.
Yes, so that one hasn't survived. But this one just about has. It's been repaired with plain beeswax at some point. And it's the Great Seal. So the Great Royal Seal has the monarch on horseback on one side.
Yes.
And enthroned on the other side. And you can't really see him sitting on a throne there.
Well, use
but
my
you
imagination.
can,
you can make
yeah,
out
but
the
you
horse
can
there.
definitely see the horse.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is quite something. And
Yeah.
then again, the seal hasn't really survived on that one, and the one on this one is very tired in its little, cloth sack,
being
and that's
protected.
tied on the top, as you can see, rather
Absolutely.
than on the bottom.
This is the main one, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean, it's fascinating. But again, this is also just these letters here. It's a royal connection that this castle has had for 900 years.
Yes.
You know, there's the
Yes.
soon-to-be King
Yeah.
Henry II
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
I mean, unbelievable. And when you and I were speaking, you said that around 10 monarchs you believed visited.
I
or-
reckon at least visited,
Yeah.
or we've got records of
Yeah.
them coming to Berkeley
or
over time.
connections with, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We know Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn visited in 1535. Lady Berkeley of the time had been a lady-in-waiting to Anne Boleyn and is said to have been one of the witnesses at Anne's secret marriage to Henry. Yeah.
So do you,
So-
can you find, or you're going to be looking through documents of that? You're not sure if you,
So we haven't really got anything specific, but there is a mention in an account book that Anne Lady Berkeley has commissioned I think it's a gable hood, one of those
oh yes.
headdress things, for the Queen.
That's
At
quite
about
something,
that
isn't it,
date.
to
Right,
find
yes,
that?
Yes, one of my
About that date,
volunteers
right.
found that.
Okay.
So unfortunately, we don't have any sort of personal letters, but
Right. But we can
that's-
make these
yes,
assumptions.
we
Yeah.
are pretty sure.
And then moving forward, then you've got
Well, we do have Elizabeth I,
Oh.
and the other documents on the table. These are 3 letters from Elizabeth to her cousin, or rather her cousin's son, George. So George Carey, Lord Hunsdon, is the grandson of Mary Boleyn. Mary Carey,
Yes.
the other Boleyn girl.
The other
The other Boleyn girl. Yep.
Yep. Saw that
So
film.
Anne Boleyn's, yep. So Anne Boleyn's sister's grandson. This is George Carey, and Elizabeth I is writing to him, and we know that she thought a lot of him because this yellow silk that you can
Yes,
see
yes.
here, originally the letter would have been tied up and sealed with it. Look.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I can't
and
believe
she-
that's still
Yeah, it's
there
still
on
so
it.
bright
Give me
yellow.
chills.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And apparently, she only used yellow silk on really important letters and letters to people she was proper fond
Right.
Okay.
of.
Yeah.
So, and in these 2, she's I think she's writing to him. He's been to Bath, I think, to take the waters, and he's not been very well. So she's hoping that he's better and hoping that his language has improved. Apparently, he was a bit of a swearer.
Oh right, right.
And sort of generally, sort of gently teasing him. She sounds very much like an affectionate aunt.
Right, right.
And so we think they were probably written on her behalf by a secretary, but signed by her. Yeah.
Well, I was about
And
to
you
say, because you can
the big-
see the
the signature.
differences in this
Yeah,
writing.
so this one is very much a different hand
and this
to
writing,
this one.
but the signatures.
Yes.
There she is,
Yes.
Elizabeth R.
Yeah.
Elizabeth R. Your most
Affectionate sovereign. Yes.
And Elizabeth always did that with her signature.
Yes.
Sort of.
big flourishes.
Yes,
One
yes.
great
sort
big
of
squiggle on
taking up a
the
bit of
E.
space.
Yeah.
These were probably written in the 1580s, 1590s, I believe.
Well, I'll tell you what is extraordinary. I mean, if you think about, this is what, 500 years old. Well,
Less.
just, yes, exactly. you can read, I can read that entire
Yes.
letter.
Yes. So this is in an
Unbelievable.
italic hand, which, I mean, now we think of italics as being the slanty font. But this, this is the sort of the forerunner of our modern handwriting, where this one
Yes.
is in something called secretary hand,
Okay,
which is
very difficult. for me.
rather different. A lot of the letter forms are very different. It takes a bit of learning. It takes you a bit of time to get
but
your
you're
eye
right
in.
about, I can
Yeah,
read
so
Good
Good
George,
George, yes.
because I've heard that before you're departing for Bath, next, maybe not, your speech was become much better. Nor your legs.
Oh yes, that's
any
it. It's
stronger.
neither. Yeah, so neither your speech was become much better, nor your legs any stronger. So yeah, so she's taken the mick out of his terrible language.
Oh my goodness.
It's great you learn a little bit about
Yeah.
her language and
Yes, and the
how she
and the relationship between them as well.
Yes.
And this one, somebody has written on it by the Queen.
Yes.
There.
I've thought that's what it was,
Yes.
but I thought I'd
Yes.
hold back just in case it was something else.
Yeah, no, it
and
is.
is this her squiggles?
That's her.
and-
That's her big old
very
signature. Yes.
elaborate.
Karen, this has been a real treat. I cannot begin to thank you, well, both of you enough. I can't even believe that I'm actually seeing this.
There is such rich history at Berkeley Castle. It's literally embedded into the stone walls. To find out more about how this astonishing fortress was built, I met up with castle custodian Josh Nash.
This is the original sort of entrance to the keep, the oldest part of the castle. This was like the front door, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so this has been around since, what, almost 1,000 years?
Almost, 900 odd, yeah. So you can see it's a much bigger archway, and then at some point it's been closed in.
Yes.
And in the archive, when Edward II was held here, he escaped twice, and after the second time he escaped, in the accounts it references narrowing doorways to make them more defendable. So we like to think that that was narrowed after Edward II escaped.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we never know
Yeah,
for sure, but
that's that makes sense now, because you're right. Now I see this enormous door, their front door to the family, but then it's been narrowed.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Okay, should we go up?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So this whole section of the castle that we're in now was built by the 8th Earl in the 1920s. It's an addition to the
addition.
to the
Okay.
keep.
But I did notice the sign that said private.
Yes, so
I
we're
feel
going
very special right now.
we're going behind the scenes.
I am going behind the scenes. Look at this. Whoa.
Probably should have tidied up a bit before you came up.
Okay.
Turn these on. So this is all sort of storage really. It was all built in the 20s, as I said, as maids' bedrooms.
This is fantastic. I mean, I love exploring.
Okay. So when we get up here, you just avoid standing on the seams,
Okay.
the vertical seams.
Okay.
But other
Oh
than that,
my goodness.
we're good to go.
You know, I've been around the castle quite a bit, but I haven't seen this sort of courtyard, if that's what it's called.
So we're on the roof of the keep, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And that's the keep garden.
And that's the keep garden.
So that was in there where that grass is.
Yes.
That was the site of the original 1067 timber Motte and Bailey Castle. So if you can imagine, there was a mound
Yeah.
with a timber castle on the top,
Yes.
and then a moat around the outside.
Right.
Well, a ditch around the outside.
Side. Yes.
And then that was built in 1067. It got demolished and rebuilt twice, I think. And then in 1153, they started the work on the keep itself, which they built in the ditch surrounding the mound in the middle.
Okay. Fantastic. And then this around here, when was these bits built?
So this is the outer wall is all 1150s.
It's all 1150.
Yeah. Well, it started in 1150.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they could build 9 foot a year. So I probably should try and figure out how long it would have taken them to build. But you can't build too high because it'll squash all the mortar out.
Oh my goodness, so
So-
they could only build as far as 9
Yeah.
feet every year.
A year, yeah, to give it time. The lime mortar needs longer time to cure.
Right.
So in the English Civil War, the castle, there was obviously the parliamentarians against the royalists, and the castle changed hands, I think 5 times between them, where it sort of sieged and surrendered and that sort of thing. The last siege, the parliamentarians took the castle and they took loads of the outer wall down. There was this sort of outer curtain wall there.
Yes.
Was originally much, much higher.
Right, right.
They demolished part of that and then they seized the castle off the family. To get the castle back, George, the 8th Baron Berkeley, had to take down that wall there, that section of the wall, to make the castle indefensible, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
It's so interesting reading the stones of a building. It really gives you a glimpse into the past. And from the roof of Berkeley Castle, you certainly get a unique perspective of how the castle evolved.
This view is spectacular.
Yeah, those chimneys are probably one of my favourite bits of the castle. If you see, I don't think our visitors would ever really notice, or anyone hardly ever notices, but the middle one out of the three
It's different,
is
yes.
convex, yeah.
Yes. And when were those built around you?
This is 1928.
This
Earl, yeah.
8th Earl, 8th
Yeah.
Earl. Fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, the chimneys are just stunning in itself.
That big chimney there.
Yes.
So these are all 1920s, but that big chimney is when Henry VIII held the castle.
It's magnificent to be able to be up here and just to see the wider estate. So do you come up here quite often just to check it out?
Yeah,
I'd be up here
Probably
all
not
the
as much as I should do, but that's par for the course. But everything is on top of, yeah.
Yeah. This is absolutely spectacular. I've noticed just walking around, and it's something that I do look at are sort of the stones and how, this castle was built. But I've noticed, obviously, stones that I recognize, but then I see quite dotted around this stone that almost looks like volcanic stone. But
It does,
obviously
yeah.
it's not.
It's not, no, there's no volcanic stone around here. So the castle was all built out of locally quarried stone. A lot of it would have come from the Forest of Dean, Pennant sandstone that would have come down the Severn and then up this river here, right to site. But this is actually, it's called Tufa stone.
Right.
And it was quarried in Dursley, which is about 3 miles over there. And it's the newest stone, if that makes sense. So spring water would have come down off the Cotswold edge,
Right.
heavy with lime basically and minerals, and then it
Okay.
settled in these great big pools in Dursley. And the minerals and the lime would have fallen out of suspension down to the bottom of the pool,
Right.
and then they cut it out like cheese basically. I was told it was like the texture of Wensleydale cheese, that sort of soft white cheese. They would have cut it out of the bottom of the pool with spades and then just let it cure on the side of the pool, and it turned into stone basically.
It turned into stone.
And then all of these divots are just old organic matter that was in the bottom of the pool as well, that has subsequently rotted off. So it looks like it's been sort of eaten up by acid or
Yes.
or extreme temperatures or something.
You really get this sense of being up here. It's not just as how vast Berkeley Castle is, the castle is, but the sense when you look at the stone, the amount of time, effort, money,
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
that was put into, creating these fortresses
Yeah.
to defend.
Yeah, and there's a huge part of it as well was imposing themselves on the land.
Yeah.
So this would have been rendered white, rendered originally. So a lot of the stone, I won't be able to find any now, but a lot of the stone, the local stone is poor quality,
Right.
but they used it because it was quick to cut
Yes.
and quick
Yes.
to build. And then they would have rendered it all. So it would have been this beautiful, pure white building on the landscape when up until that point everything was sort of timber.
Right.
And the Normans came in and just went, we're in charge.
All right. So you're telling me that once upon a time, this castle, if I were looking at it, would have been white.
Yeah, pure white.
No.
A huge sort of almost blot on the landscape, really.
Oh my gosh.
We have got bits of render left. So it was rendered up until sort of 1830, I think, or 1840 is the last entry in the accounts for rendering or pargeting, external pargeting.
It is such an amazing building and astonishing to think it's been home to one family for nearly 900 years. As we walked through the rooms of the castle, Charles was keen to show me a very special portrait in the long drawing room.
My lovely, wonderful mother, who lives in the castle, in a wing of the castle, and fantastic by a family friend. And it's got a great likeness of her with a deer hound. She always liked bigger dogs, and it's very elegant. And this was done in 1987.
Do you know what drew my attention to this portrait was the expression on her face?
Yes.
Because so many times you see portraits that it's just sort of stoic, right?
Yeah.
And there's this sort of a beautiful glance, a bit of a smile.
There is just coming through, and the artist we knew, we're family friends, and it's great.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
A beautiful dress.
Lovely dress, and here it is.
Oh, you're right.
That is the dress. Wow. And I remember when she wore it at a couple of things, but I remember her wearing it for the sitting, and she wore it before that as well.
Charles's mother, Mrs. Georgina Berkeley, has lived in the castle for over 50 years. When we met, I asked what it was like to raise a family in a castle, and a castle that is open to the public as well.
So you've raised two boys here, raised your family here, at the same time having the public come.
Yeah.
And what was that like all these years?
Well, I hadn't known life sort of without it, really, had I? You know.
Yes.
I remember opening the front door and getting the boys out on one occasion, and Charles screamed his head off and said, "Oh, there's people out there, lots of people out there." So I said, "Oh, don't worry, Charles, come on, quickly, on we go." And we got out of their way, and I would take them down onto the bottom lawn there. You've probably seen.
Yes, yes.
And under the big tree, and we'd sort of space ourselves out so nobody else could get down there. They played down there,
Right.
little tractors and what have you.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that you found a sort of a private part within
We
the
tried
castle.
to find,
Yes.
and the keep garden, which
Oh, yeah, I saw the keep garden.
well, we ended up there, I think, which was good. But I only realised rather stupidly that, of course, everyone in the King's Gallery was looking through the windows straight at us.
When you think of so many, decades here, what are some of your fondest memories?
It's a lovely place to live in, actually. You know, you're surrounded by lovely things, which
Yes.
I like. And I've always loved this place. And so it's just, to me, it's just home,
Yes.
you know.
And it feels, this room, and even walking around in different parts that I've been, it feels.
Lived in, doesn't it? Yes.
Yes.
But it's become much more not a home in the time I've been here, really.
Right.
You know, it's more of a business,
Yes.
weddings, and everything, which you need, you see, to keep
Yes.
the expense of the roofing and all that sort of thing.
Well, I know.
And we had to rewire, 5 or more, 7 years, something like that. So we had to vacate the castle completely.
When you were rewiring the
When we
castle.
were
Oh, my goodness.
rewiring and new boilers and all
Yes.
that.
You know, this is a castle. There's
Yes.
so many rooms and layers, and it's not just a quick job.
A quick
It's-
fix.
No.
It isn't. You see, and the walls are so thick. A lot of the little room through there And the bathroom upstairs were dug out of the thickness of the walls by our predecessor,
Right.
who made sense because they're 14 feet in places.
Oh my.
The walls
The
of
walls.
thickness.
Oh my.
I still can't get a handset telephone. That.
Because it can't.
They can't get through the walls,
You can't get through.
which I think is splendid in this day of modern technology,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's wonderful just for me personally to come and visit here because also we have a historic house that we run as well, and it's lived in and it's very homey, and that's what's so wonderful to be
Yes,
here.
and you're aware of the peculiarities.
Yes, and the difficulties, and because there are difficulties, it's, you know, we have this phrase that my husband and I always use, that it's no picnic running a historic house, even for the family that invented the sandwich. Because
Yes.
so, and it's it takes time and patience and an understanding, and also I think a sympathetic view to make sure that we aren't over modernizing and overdoing it, so that it still retains with the features that we want to retain, but also becomes a comfortable family home. But yes, we're opening it up to the
But also
public.
you've got the character.
Yes,
You know, I think it's a great shame to move everything.
I agree.
My husband was exactly the same. He hated change, as he always said, so nothing had to change.
Right,
And so I didn't bother.
right.
I mean, most people would have put in more modern kitchens or whatever, you know, but
Right, but
I'm
when
very happy without it.
yes, exactly. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I also do need to ask, because whilst being here, I discovered the 8th Earl, I know from Charles and also speaking to Josh, has done quite a lot of work here, from the roof to
Huge
the
lot.
huge, extraordinary amount. And I also found out that his second wife was American. Is that right?
Molly.
Mo-
She's a pain in the neck. I shouldn't say that, actually.
She's dead, so I think
Yes,
it's
she's
okay.
very dead. And when we had to go, she was American, as you
Right,
say.
right.
I don't want to be rude about
No,
your race.
Listen, we've had a couple people sort of a couple women ruffle some feathers in the past. So I know, and remember, you know, the Americans sort of came over during the turn of the century, the turn of the 20th century, and did kind of ruffle up the historic
Well,
houses.
I know, because the English, well, actually the British, were looking for rich wives.
Yes, yes. So was Molly a rich?
Yes, very. She was a Lowell from Boston.
Yes.
And she married the last, as she always calls him,
Right.
in the things she's written, you know, the last Earl and all this. And married him. When we had to go and meet her.
Oh, you met her?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I only the once. John met her quite a few times as a
Right,
little
right.
boy, I mean, as he was
Yes.
growing up. And probably, in fact, he met her when Lord Berkeley was still alive.
Okay.
And they were living here. But I didn't meet her till after he died. And we had to pay for her to stay at Claridge's for, I think it was a month, every year after he died.
Oh my goodness.
So we went there once, had tea with her. We were bidden for tea. And I thought, well, it'd be civil, you know. I said, well, you know, do come and stay if you're ever
Right.
down in Gloucestershire or anything. Come and stay, she said. You know, the only way you'll get me back there is feet first. And that was exactly what happened. She came in her coffin.
No. Oh my goodness.
Yes, I think it's hilarious. We actually made the coffin at the estate yard here with
Right.
Berkeley oak, beautiful coffin.
Yes.
And we had a little mass for her in the chapel here.
Yes, yes. So she did come from a wealthy family.
Yes,
And then
very much
was
so.
it her money that helped?
Yes, because Lord Berkeley, well, he had plenty of money, but, you know, doing a house up wasn't how he would look upon spending it.
thank you for your time
No,
and for
not a
just
bit.
these wonderful, memories and.
Well,
it's
I
been
haven't
brilliant.
got too many,
Yes, you do.
unfortunately. I wasn't here long enough, you know. But,
Well, 50 odd years is quite some time.
well, it feels to me like a lifetime.
Yes.
I know you must feel the same.
Yes.
Having spoken with Georgina about the American Countess of Berkeley, I was keen to visit the family chapel in the church just outside the castle walls.
I've been given the key. It's one of those rather wonderful, spectacular keys. Oh my goodness. Here we go, here we go. Randall Thomas Mowbray, 8th and last Earl of Berkeley, born the 31st day of January 1865, died 15th January 1942, but this is what I'm looking for. And Mary Emlyn, which would be Molly, his countess, born the 31st day of July 1884 and died in 1975. She lived a long time, so that's 91 years. And look at this. They would have planned this beforehand, and it's, you know, quite exquisite, and it's, in one sense, sort of showing off sort of power and wealth. But usually you can find in the vault something else. Here we go, here we go. Here we go. The last Earl. So interesting that whoever, I don't know if it was the 8th Earl himself or if it was his American wife, Mrs. Berkeley, seems to think it was all to do with Molly, making sure that he was known as the last Earl. But here it is again, the last Earl of Berkeley and Mary Emlyn, his countess. So they would have been buried right here, underneath here. It's unbelievable. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The carvings, I mean, this is really the family vault. And you can see the coats of arms all around, extraordinary carvings up above, and the alabaster here, I mean, beautiful. But this is how they, you know, this is how they did it. You know, these families of nobility, power, they would make sure that upon their death, that they would be seen like this for, you know, eternity. Let's see the date there, 1635, and we've got 1600s over there as well. Incredible.
Dominating the landscape in the deer park on the Berkeley estate is the most spectacular folly. To hear more about its history and the plans for the future, I met up with Charles and the estate director, Michelle Bolivar.
And here we are heading up to this fantastic folly in the middle of the deer park.
Follies were used for, I mean, why were they built? I mean, I know there are several reasons, but...
Yeah, lots of reasons. I mean, this one in particular is more of kind of a hunting lodge, so it's actually quite big for a folly. Lots of them were just eye catchers. They were places to look to on the horizon, so that you had kind of, you could show off kind of where you were going and had a point to kind of go somewhere for an indoor picnic, I suppose, as you were having a nice adventure around the estate.
Right.
The building was started in 1805. And then it took quite a few years to complete. So some follies are just like one room with a pretty view or whatever, or an eye catcher to kind of ride to or walk to. Whereas this actually has 3 big rooms, which we'll go and have a look at. So yeah, this is quite large compared to a lot.
So Charles, I mean, really, compared to the castle, this is kind of like a new build, right?
It is, relatively speaking, 900 years, and then you've got 200 years, but still,
yeah,
it is still an old building.
Yeah, it's beautiful,
impressive.
Really impressive. And is it still used today?
We do use it a few times throughout the year, don't we?
Occasional events in the year, one or two,
right.
but it's we want to really get it up and running.
Yeah.
To be able to use for lets.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in need of a bit of
Bit
love
of
and
work.
attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is brilliant. Coat of arms, you can see that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Everywhere. So this was, you mentioned 1805 was when the building started.
Yeah.
Which Earl was that then?
That would have been the 5th Earl of Berkeley in his
Earl.
lifetime.
Right, who had 12 children.
And his children would have been involved in this.
Right.
So maybe this is where he escaped to from the 12 children.
Right, from
Quite likely.
Good hiding
exactly,
place.
it's a very good hiding place. Oh my goodness. Wow. I see what you mean, that this could absolutely be a holiday let.
Yeah, it could, couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, so this is where the bedrooms would be. So ideally,
Yes.
2 bedrooms, ensuite in both, and then obviously lovely views. And that's our potential ensuite in there.
Oh.
Not quite ready yet.
Oh, let me have a little look. Listen, I'm big on renovations. I'm doing one at Mapperton right now. So I'm doing one at a cottage on the estate. So, and it's, you know, slow,
Yeah.
but steady.
Yeah.
But this would be a brilliant ensuite
Well, it's
bathroom
quite
here.
cool. So we're in one of the turrets now. So there's 4 kind of circular little turrets to the folly. So we're trying to make the most use of the
Yeah.
space, and it's also quite cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's a really important building, we need to do everything in a really sensitive way.
Yes.
To try and make sure we don't ruin the integrity of
Yes,
what we're trying
of
to
course.
achieve here. We haven't quite worked out how it's all going to fit in, have we, Charles? But
But
it will.
It will.
It will. There's some really lovely clawfoot
Yeah.
bathtubs, a little bit
Yeah.
smaller, but
Yeah.
they're lovely.
Yeah.
Real
exactly.
character to suit
And it's
the
not-
folly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, you don't normally have an arrow slit window in your bathroom.
No.
So I think
No,
that
I
should be
know,
quite-
but I'm loving all of the arrow slit windows. That is for sure. Brilliant. Okay, so ensuite bathroom
Yeah.
here. I'm envisioning it now. Bedroom here.
Yeah,
Then
Yeah.
you walk through here, another bedroom,
yeah.
and then another staircase.
And then another staircase.
So-
go on
Should we
up.
go on up?
Yeah. Another staircase. This is brilliant. I mean, I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. This
This is the party room.
Right, this is the party room.
Definitely.
But it's incredible because you've got these 360 views.
Yeah.
And you've got Deer Park surrounding. I mean, and the light coming in. All right, so Michelle, what are you thinking for this room?
So rough plan of attack, this would be the kind of the sitting room, the drawing
Yeah.
room. So people will come up here, there'll be a nice fire going, they'll have lovely views. If it's a sunny day, they'll have lots of fancy velvet curtains. If it's not, they'll feel cosy in here. So that's the plan for this. And I think trying to just bring it back to, trying to use our imagination, what would it have been like when the 5th Earl was enjoying it?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
kind of have a nod to that.
Yes,
so, Yeah, that's
absolutely.
the plan.
Right, and then I can see 2 doors on either
Yeah.
side.
So turrets again, so as we saw in the bathrooms below. And then what we're thinking in here, which is a nice little cosy space, is that could be the kind of little hidden away reading room. So, you know,
Yeah.
library-esque kind of
Yeah.
reading chair. So you can go and escape there
Yes.
and have some quiet time with the arrow slits and everything else in there as well.
Yeah, it's like
and
a
probably a
snug.
drinks cabinet of some
Yeah,
sort.
Definitely
drinks.
gotta have a bar
Definitely
area.
drinks. Bar,
Quite a big one.
absolutely. And then that one across.
Probably loo bathroom, so that you haven't got to go all the way down to the bottom floor.
Yes.
When you're kind of up here with all of your stuff, and store, so you can just bring everything at once.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is brilliant. I mean, this is
cool,
definitely,
isn't
if it's, I mean, I have to say, one of the best follies I know it's, but I've ever been in.
Yeah, it is. It's
We love it. It's lovely.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, I would definitely be keen on letting it whenever
Yeah.
that happens.
Fingers crossed.
Sign me up. But wonderful that you have, again, this bit of history that the 5th Earl left the family, and it's still standing and will be used again and again.
And I think that's what's so important, not just this building, but kind of across all estates and all historic buildings, is how do you keep giving them a future?
Yes.
Because things change, we're no longer having big hunting parties in here, that isn't what it's used for.
Right.
So how can we make it have a future, both financially and to make it stand, and so people can still enjoy it, because that's what it was built for.
Yes.
It was built so people could have a really good time in the deer park.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we want to keep going, really.
Yeah.
And it's in this wonderful location with views on all sides, so let's make the most of it before it deteriorates more.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And actually that's one of the biggest issues that we have here, is it was built, it was beautiful. He obviously employed very good craftsmen. The stairs are a really good example of excellent craftsmanship. However, it's made out of something called mudstone, which is highly inconvenient because we're quite exposed up here, and it just starts shattering. So one of the big costs, and you can't just fix that and then forget about it, so one of the big costs that we have is we have to keep stabilising that stone. So whether that's through treatment, whether it's through pointing, whether it's just through making sure it's safe.
Yes.
So that's just an ongoing thing that earns no pennies at all, but that we have to spend quite a bit of money on to keep it in good structural order.
Charles and Daisy Berkeley live out on the estate in a wonderful former hunting lodge with the most amazing views. I caught up with Daisy and asked her what it's like living away from the castle.
When Charles and I married, Charles's parents were in the castle. Charles's mother is still in the castle, and she's very happy in there. You've been there, it's very warm and cosy. It's a lovely place to live. It's a very safe place to live. So it was never going to be for us for the time being. But we have quite a collection of animals and some quite large dogs, which we love. And with the castle open to the public so much, I think it's open 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And for a lot of the year, and there's lots of weddings as well, for us to be going in and out, because you can't just open the door and let them into the garden.
Right.
Because we have inner bailies and outer bailies and great big doors and locks and keys and things, because it's
it's a maze.
A proper castle.
Yes.
And also, poor Charles, when he married me, he did get this menagerie, which included horses. And so, yes, living where we are now, we have a barn with internal stables, we have loads of space, and we're just spoilt rotten with places for the horses and the dogs to roam free.
This house, though, how long has it been here? What's the history of this house?
And when you look at it, it looks like the most insane place to build a house, because you get hit by all the weather all year round. And I mean, it is hilarious when the storms hit and we just sort of batten down the hatches. But it was not built as a sort of family home. It was built actually originally as a hunting lodge.
Okay.
They believe, I mean, people have studied it, they believe some of it was started in the 1300s. There's some very old stonework, and then bits were added, bits fell down, other bits were added. It was built as a hunting lodge for hunting deer. And I mean, who knows, maybe Elizabeth I was in this one.
Right.
Because, I mean, she came to hunt deer at Berkeley, and I think she stayed for a little longer than anyone thought she would and killed most of the deer, but she may have set foot in this place as well. I mean, it has probably got a hell of a history. And
so then when did you move here?
The last tenants were farmers, and I mean, poor them, the whole thing was sort of falling down around them, and they were very stoical staying here. I think not many people would. There was no electrics. They occasionally, I think they had a generator if they wanted a bit of light. And there's also no running water.
So like roughing it.
Proper roughing it.
Fantastic.
There was a little wood burner. And I mean, we are sitting here all cozy with underfloor heating,
so warm,
living the life of right. I think they also rather loved it up here. And then it became just derelict, and there was trees growing through where we're sitting now.
No.
This wall, I think, was about to come down. There was sort of falling down pig pens. I mean, it was a ruin.
Right.
And it was virtually about to be razed to the ground. And someone made the brave decision, thought, actually, let's make it a holiday let.
Okay.
Which probably would have been amazing.
Yes.
But Charles and I saw this happening, and we thought, actually, maybe we could just get in there first.
Right.
And we made the decision, and it was the most exciting thing we could have done, because to live here is just, we feel like the luckiest people alive with this view.
Daisy has a successful equestrian career, a highlight winning the team bronze medal at the Beijing Olympics in 2008.
I think the peak of my career was around the years when Charles and I married. And I think since then I've been reducing in numbers. I think, you know, I'm getting older, and so every year, you know, I seem to be one horse less.
Right.
And I'm now down to 2.
Right.
And they're 2 lovely horses, and I'm not out there competing all the time like I used to, because I think, you know, as you get older, I want to do more things to help Charles with the castle and with projects that are going on there. I can't completely let go, because I do like, I mean, all horses are lovely, but competition horses, well-trained horses, I just love riding a lovely horse. And I think when the love is completely gone, or I lose my nerve, I think that is the time to completely pull the plug.
Right.
I think Charles would be quite keen if I pulled the plug soon.
You married in 2009, is that right?
Yes.
And then you had, that, as you said, that was the height of your career, because you had the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Yes.
And you had a bronze medal in that. Fantastic. So that
The wrong colour.
It's the right color. All medals.
At least we got something.
Yeah. Career. And then after that, you married Charles. And you know, when you knew about sort of Berkeley Castle, this was going to be where you were, you know, one day going to end up. I mean, for me, it felt a bit daunting, and had a career, but also I'm the American, so I was like, whoa, what? But did you feel that same sort of, I guess, emotion inside, like, or did you kind of feel like, I'm going to separate the two for now, I'm going to carry on with my career?
Yes, very much so. I knew that Charles and the castle, they have an incredibly good team working, they have a very good system, everything runs like a well-oiled machine. And yes, there's always going to be evolution of that, new things happening. And I knew, Charles always said that he would love me to get involved doing whatever interested me. And we do have a lot of talks about it, what does interest me. I'm very fond of the garden side of it.
Yeah.
And Berkeley does have a beautiful garden, and I think it's rather a wonderful garden. So I would like to get more involved with that. And they've also got a new project with a kitchen garden.
Right.
And there's a new restaurant being built. And I think we want to try and have a really good project with the kitchen garden. Maybe also try and encourage a little bit of I'd love to have a little farmers market going on. Start small, see what the farmers in the area would like to sell.
Yes.
And see where we go from there.
And I am going to ask you sort of the $1 million question. Do you think that there will ever be a time that you will move to the castle?
I mean, we're very aware that one of the sort of USPs of Berkeley is the fact that it has been lived in by the same family since the day it was started.
Nearly 900 years. Incredible.
And we don't want to be the ones to break that chain. I don't ever see us living in it 24/7.
Right.
Because of the animal factor.
Yes.
We're never going to be without animals.
Right,
and our daughter Mary, she has ponies. She's convinced she wants to ride.
Right.
And it's much easier to be out in the middle of nowhere. We'd love to retain a small area where we can stay. And I'll do whatever he sees fit. But I know, you know, both of us do love just being able to take a step back.
Yes.
And it's almost like leaving the job slightly. And Berkeley, considering how cold and dank it would have been once upon a time, you know, as a proper, you know, fortified castle. I think the last Earl put a lot of money into it to make it an incredibly cozy place that it is. And it's a lovely place to stay. And to look out of the windows and see around you, and these wonderful, incredibly thick walls, and you know, it's an absolute treat.
The views from Berkeley Castle to the gardens are wonderful. I headed out to explore and meet head gardener Chris Gill.
Hello.
Hello.
I was told I could find you here. You must be Chris.
I'm Chris,
Yeah, I'm Julie. So
How's
nice
you?
to meet you.
And you?
So what are you doing here, really quickly, before I ask you a million other questions?
So we've got a wedding fair on this weekend.
Right.
This is one of the main areas they bring people down to because it's part of the wedding breakfast. They bring
Yes.
people down for drinks and things, and it's a lovely setting. So I need to really make this really, really tidy.
Yes.
And get it looking really good so that people are, want to come and have their weddings here.
Okay, so what are you snipping away at?
Just hydrangeas that have died back, so get them looking good for the summer.
Right. Now, I'd love to just pick your brain a little bit, Chris, just
Yeah.
about the gardens here. And especially gardens are so important they're an important feature of these historic houses.
They definitely are, yeah.
Yeah, huge feature. I mean, people come to see not just the house, they come to see the gardens as
And
well.
they would have developed along with the family, so you'd have had produce feeding the family and all the retainers, and then gradually over the years, that gets smaller, then it turns into a house for visitors,
Yes.
which needs to look really good. So you then design gardens around it, more for that, for them, the spectacle of the garden.
Yes. So tell me a little bit about that.
So that is the old swimming pool.
Is it?
Yeah. So I think that was the last Earl put that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, this swimming pool is 5 foot deep in the middle, 4.5 foot each end, which is great for a swimming pool, but not so great for a lily pond.
Right.
So we have it now as a lily pond.
Okay.
And lily's only like really 3 foot so
Okay.
it makes it a little bit
So
awkward.
does anybody swim in it? Occasionally?
No, funnily enough.
So it's,
No,
it's,
even
it's
people
evolved.
falling into it doesn't happen very often, funnily enough.
So how long have you been working here? That's my next question.
33 years.
Oh my goodness. So you've really seen a lot of
Oh, a
change.
lot of changes, yeah. yeah.
And what would you say in particular has been the biggest change that you've seen or you've done yourself in these gardens? Because they're quite terraced up.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I'm the only full-time gardener now, so we have to. It's a lot more mechanised than it used to be, which has to be to get work done. It has to look good in the summer.
Yes.
So I absolutely adore roses. So every space I get, I put more roses in. We've changed quite a lot of the gardens around over the years, just because you need to.
Yes.
Things need to change. You can't stand still with it.
No, you can't. I know that from experience of visiting so many historic houses, things have changed so much over the past 100 years, and in particular after the two world wars. But
yes,
what was it? Yeah. Prior to that big change, that big shift.
Well, it was very labour intensive
Right.
up to that point. But yeah, before certainly the First World War, there were 33 gardeners. Would have been working in the grounds. Wow. Mostly doing produce for the family and the staff.
So I do have to ask this, since you've been here for
Yeah.
33 years and you've seen all these changes, but do you have a special part in the garden that you just love?
To be honest, no. It's a whole.
Yes.
And things change. Part of the garden will change, and that bit will be my favourite bit for that part of the season, maybe. And then, and there's always going to be parts of the garden that I'll go, I really need to get on with that. I need to sort that out because that's not looking good. So yeah, it does change, definitely.
Yeah.
I think probably the gun terrace, the one on the top there, is possibly my favourite bit.
Where the tulips were.
Yeah, because you just get, I change that in the spring and summer, so I always put the summer flowers out there. And that's the first thing people see, so it has to look impactful, it has to look really good.
Yeah, it's the first thing I saw, and then I was like, oh, that's so beautiful, I'm going to come down into the gardens. So it works.
Yeah, and that gives me, because it's got these beautiful walls giving a lot of heat, it produces a fantastic environment, and you've got south facing as well.
Yes.
So you can grow all kinds of tender plants there, which, it's a really good aspect. So yeah, that probably is my favourite bit. Yeah.
Oh.
And across from the gardens, the redevelopment of the late 18th century kitchen garden was just getting started.
All right, there's a lot of noise going on behind me. Explain
There is.
to me and to everybody what is happening and where we are.
This is our massive step change project. So what we're going to try and do is build a new building, so cafe, visitor centre, toilets, shop,
Wow.
basically, and then that will help our visitor business at the castle, but it will also be a really funky place for Berkeley town to
Yes.
come to and enjoy kind of every day of the year. That's
Right.
the plan.
That is it. But we are in what would have been a big
Yeah.
kitchen garden. Is
Yeah,
that right?
absolutely. So it would have had, there's all glass houses along this back wall.
Yes.
So, and you can almost see the remnants down there. So
Yeah.
that's project number 2. There would have been, and one of the big bits here, we want to recreate it. So this would have provided a lot of the food for the castle at one point.
Yes.
So we want to try and recreate that as much as we can. So historic planting, reinstating fruit trees. We'll have peaches and apricots espaliered along the sunny walls.
Yeah.
We'll have herb gardens, and then we've still got the veg garden down there, which we will keep and kind of keep working on.
Right, right.
So yeah.
Fantastic. No, because when I spoke to Chris, your wonderful head gardener, he did tell me a little bit of the story that at one point, 100 years ago, and like all these historic houses, they had 33 gardeners and they had this huge kitchen garden, but that's what these kitchen gardens were used for. They were used to feed the castle and the community around. And obviously we've evolved very much so. And we now open up our houses to the public. And we want the public to come in, but in a different way.
Exactly, exactly. We want to be able to grow things in here that then the caterers can then make into something lovely.
Right, yes.
So that's the plan.
How wonderful.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It's
But this
really
is step
cool.
change for Berkeley. This is a really big
It
project
really
for
is.
us.
Every historic house owner strives to make an impact for the long-term benefit and survival of the buildings and estate. So I asked Charles if this is one of those legacy projects for him at Berkeley Castle.
I think it's one of many things
Yes,
I'd
yes.
like to see for, that people can look back on and say, this was in my time, and just making the place, improving, adding to what's here.
Yes.
I'm not really someone, I've got to make this big mark, just lots of things that hopefully stand the test of time.
Well, yeah. Well,
And the fact it's happening now, I think it's the right thing.
Yeah, well,
it seems like the right thing.
You're incredibly humble, because I can tell you, I'm pretty certain that people will remember, and they do, that you're the one that sort of decided, hey, let's do something different here.
I do believe it's so important, and there is a need for something like this, and I think it will be very good for the community and for visitors. And we have a lot of people within a few miles of here who may not have come here. We're offering something amazing that is bowing to, the history of Berkeley and the estate. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it is really important.
From a very operational perspective, we've got a brilliant, really strong team of guides, but in terms of catering, people don't want a job for 6 months. We've got to be really realistic.
Yes.
People want a full-time or a permanent job.
Yes.
And this way we can hopefully do that, which again gives us kind of a link to the community, because hopefully they can come and help and work with us on it.
It's
So
very important.
It's really brilliant. So let's talk about timeline really quickly, because of course there's so much work going behind me. Now, where are you as far as the project goes? What stage are you at? And I see you're holding a clipboard as well.
So that's just the floor plan of. The whole point of this building is to actually be, this sounds awful from an architect's point of view, is to be really boring. We don't want it to be the focus. The walled garden is the focus. This sits quietly in a corner. So it's got to be a lot of things.
So this is just the layout. And we'll
So
get
this is
B-roll
just
of
the
this, but you
layout,
can-
yeah. So you can see with outside access into toilets, so coach groups, etc. can go there. The biggest kitchen we could get in, but every chef always wants a bigger kitchen, so we've had to just be practical.
Still
and then the
fantastic.
biggest space, and this is going to have lovely bifold doors on the front, so it's very much an inside-out space. You're in a beautiful garden, you're in a sheltered space. From the financial point of view, this is a long time coming. This building needs to work really hard.
Yes, it does.
So it also needs to be as flexible as possible.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what we try to achieve.
I mean, listen, you're talking to the yogi here, and I'm
Exactly.
thinking, gosh, you could do
Yeah.
yoga classes here.
Yeah.
You could do well-being days
Exactly.
here. And that's
Yeah.
something that we have done at Mapperton. So we have a similar layout in our stable block. It looks very similar to this, and it's our cafe as well.
Yeah.
But every Friday We have yoga. We just
Yeah.
started it this year, and
Yeah.
it's doing tremendously well.
And
then
yeah.
we have lots of people asking to do different
Yeah.
events, and
Yeah.
they're local artisans, or
Yeah.
it's crafting, or it's
Yeah.
well-being,
Yeah.
and they
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
And I think if we could really link to kind of the food story,
Yes.
we've got food production in the kitchen garden.
Yes.
We've then got food production on our estate, wider estate with our tenant farmers. You know, there's got to be
Yeah.
some synergy there that we
Yeah.
can really,
Really
bring
has,
in.
yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're planning for.
And that's where we can use it, I think, here. Yeah.
I mean, brilliant. I'll come back. I can't wait. I've invited myself like 3 times already.
Anytime.
You're welcome.
Yeah, do.
Whenever you fancy.
Clearly coming
Whenever.
back.